There was genetically perfect, right? And then these ones they called invalids.
Your DNA isn't something you just possess. It's literally at the molecular level.
All data is a record of humanity. It's been nothing else. And everybody wants to understand that record.
We look at it isn't just a threat to data privacy, it's a potential violation of informational body. Data is basically in limbo, waiting on court. If your genetic data helps train medical AI that saves lives, but you never explicitly consented to this use, has your agency been violated?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to TCAST. You are here with Alexander McCaig, CEO of TARTLE, and Jason Rigby, Chief Conscious Marketing Officer. We want to thank you all. We got this. Take this down without it going into your head. We got this plaque, kind of cool. Well, I got to get the light off of it. There you go. For having 100,000 people subscribe to listening to our nonsense all the time.
All the time, yes.
So we really appreciate that. You know, look at this. Pretty cool.
It's like a little stand or something.
Well, a little kickstand for it. Anyway, right there. Awesome. So happy to have you guys here. We are back. Today we want to talk about the 23andMe data crisis. What do you guys think about that? So Jason, you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, I have 23andMe. I was like one of the first ones to do it. So my data is in there.
Yeah.
Like, well, and it's not just, I want people to understand it. It's not just your data. Like you think of it's like, oh, it's my login. It's your freaking DNA.
You know, think
about that.
Yeah. In the earliest days, the CEO, I forget what her name is, they had sold the data to GlaxoSmithKline without consent. First of all, that's like such a stupid thing to do. And they got their wrist slapped pretty hard for it. But clearly not enough, because now they're at a point and everybody knows this repository of DNA is extremely valuable. Have you ever seen the movie Gattaca?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
Ethan Hawke and Jude Law and Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened in that film?
Barely.
So there's two types of people.
Like early 2000s?
There was genetically perfect, right? And then these ones they called invalids. Now, when certain private groups got a hold of this genetic data, they could test against people that would say, want to go get a job. Now, if you weren't of a genetic level of perfection, they would say, no, we're not going to hire you. They would be, what the hell's the word for this? They'd be profiling people and saying, no, not going to happen. Won't do it. Sorry. When it comes to this data, if it gets sold to the wrong people, which it inevitably will, that's going to be a huge problem, because there's no reason that the same issues we saw in this like pseudo-utopian society with the movie Gattaca could not also happen here.
Well, you see it in all societies do this.
This is not a money issue.
It's always ranking.
This is the deepest targeting issue of really some of the most sensitive information. And currently today, human beings do not have the aptitude for self-control for using things like this at large. And all of this, and you can get to the backstory, is now in the hands of the bankruptcy lawyers for 23andMe to decide what goes on with the data. They're not fucking data professionals. They don't know jack shit about it.
Well, the worst part is not only is your most intimate biological blueprint on the auction block. I mean, you got to really think about that. But now we have 15 million customers that are in this nightmare scenario of your data is basically in limbo, waiting on courts.
No, so here's what's messed up. So
lawyers and courts.
I had my wife's also a part of 23andMe. I had her go on there and request to download her data. They have up to 30 days to give you your genetic information back. If you put it on there instantly, they should be able to give it back to you instantly.
Right.
They still haven't responded.
Yes.
But you don't want to go and delete that, because that's your asset. So she has to now wait until some sort of process when they release something that's rightfully hers to come back to her, and then go all the way back into 23andMe and delete the data. Now, a simple solution for this, and we've gone to 23andMe in the past, is for them to adopt Data Vault Connect. And the bankruptcy lawyers should be listening to like, okay, we need a fast, seamless option for me to offload this data back to the people who rightfully own it. And if they choose to monetize it, the revenue share that 23andMe would get would help pay off the bankruptcy, debt that they have against the revenues they get from their people, from actual consumers monetizing their genetic information. Audit trail, provenance solves this entire thing. But currently today, they're not listening to that and seeing that availability of what technology currently exists that is right by the consumer and allows the consumer to choose that if it's my genetic information, I chose to put it in 23andMe. It should not be in the power of 23andMe to decide where the rest of my genetic information is.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and I want to get into this conceptualization of data ownership, especially in the AI age. And I think there's three powerful forces that are reshaping how this technological landscape is when it comes to our data. So number one is the monetization of personal data. I want to go through all three real fast, and then I want you to hit each one. The monetization of personal data, the rise of AI systems that are hungry hippo for the data, and then the growing awareness among consumers about their digital footprint, and that it does in an educated consumer, it does deserve protection. So let's start with the monetization of personal data. All three of these are symbiotic, and they're like, especially with the AI systems, when we look at this,
it can only be solved by one tool. They all have one core thing that links them all, right? It's a technology called TARTLE. Okay?
But if you don't have TARTLE, I want people to understand this. If we don't have that bridge, kick back to the consumer, we're going to have a utopia of these companies making billions and billions of dollars off your data and nobody getting nothing from it.
No one gets
They'll get a
from
social media app, or
you don't get money, you don't get choice,
no,
you don't get control, you don't even get a guarantee that it was used properly with licensing. You get no say. And our world is shifting to where there's so much monetization around this data. It's been happening in a B2B sense.
Right.
But now it has to happen in the B2C sense. And for the consumer, there are tools now, methodologies that align with these social changes. People are using Brave browser. People are using VPNs. People care about privacy. All these changes because we've been abused by larger corporate entities that don't give a shit about human rights. Right. Now, because of that, there's this tidal social change that has occurred. And inside of that, there's been no technology to support where society is actually headed. So we had to go and create this thing. That's why we have TARTLE Data Vault Connect. There's a system designed to give all that power and monetization back to the consumer themselves and have them, decide where, when, what, and, to whom that data is actually headed with a provable line of ownership. Otherwise, if that's not proved, what do you have? You don't have anything.
Well, let's get into the philosophical aspects of ownership, because I think this is really important. You just said that word. I want people to understand this is not like a car or a house.
No.
Your DNA isn't something you just possess.
No.
And it's literally at the molecular level. And what does that look like when it comes to data ownership when it's at the molecular level?
Do you know,
think about that.
So iPhones, right? Or cell phones.
Right.
There's different generations of these things, and they become more expensive over time because they're becoming more advanced. A genome sequence is millions of years of evolution. And what are we going to do? Hand it to somebody so they can freely choose whatever the hell they want to do with it? It's yours. You were born into it. You shouldn't have to request something which is your right at a genetic level to own. You shouldn't have to request that back from them. It should have been freely given to you in the first place, unrestricted.
Well, I think it's an ontological paradox.
That's a very interesting word.
Because I think what it does is it's a contradiction in the nature of being.
Of course.
And your genetic data simultaneously exists as both an extension of yourself, and people aren't realizing this, a corporate asset.
So if 23andMe does not want to give you your data back, they don't give a shit about your rights. They don't actually care about you as a human being. They never set up that structure in the first place. The whole thing was for economic gain, not actually for human evolution.
Right.
It was a gaffe. That's why they're going bankrupt.
And how can something be alienable, like in the sense of capable of being transferred?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, inalienable and separately from your identity.
Yeah, this is what's crazy. I go to swallow my mouth, I give it to you. I've transferred genetic material to you guys. You don't want to give me back those things in a timely fashion when I've chosen. So first of all, consumers paid money giving you genetic material. You give them a couple bullshit reports, but you want to hold their stuff essentially ransom for 30 days.
Yes.
If not longer, with no guarantee that they're going to actually get it back. And then this entire time you've been trying to monetize their data without their consent, and they get nothing back for it. Your company does not exist without people in their genetics. So if you don't rightfully find an equilibrium of balance, it seems very obvious to me that your company would have failed.
Well, what's the silly part about it is, instead of being subversive about this, it would be so simple to go to the people and say, hey, you can actually make more money.
Right.
23andMe could make more money. It can get legal consent. But I think it goes back to John Locke. He's that 17th century.
Locke in your rights.
First, yes. He underpinned about Western property law.
Yeah.
Especially here in the United States, we really adopted it. And it was the right to gain ownership by mixing our labor with resources.
But Jason, this has evolved from that. It's no longer Western property law. This is human property law.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how do you apply genome or genetic information simply because somebody's created a technology to analyze it?
Yeah, that doesn't.
They don't get the right.
They don't get the right. They get an analysis, but they don't have the rights to that data.
It's like I still own my property,
And if
even though I may have to pay, even though they assess the cost of the property through the property tax, which we won't get into that, but they're assessing the property tax. They're using a technology, however they come up with that, to say your property is worth $1 million, let's just say. But that doesn't mean they have ownership of that, because they have the technology to be able to, make a authoritative decision on that property. You see what I'm saying?
Correct. Look, times have changed completely. And this whole obfuscated black market data thing that began with Cambridge Analytica, went further with banking data, took it further with X-Keyscore in the United States government and social media, 23andMe selling this stuff over to GlaxoSmithKline. Data, it's a word that gets tossed around a lot, okay? It does not exist normally. There's some sort of human interaction involved. We could have computers everywhere.
Yes.
Okay? Exclusive of human beings. Say you had computers everywhere. The data is not there if something's not programmed on how to capture it or told what to capture. A human has to be involved in it. All data is a record of humanity. It's been nothing else. And everybody wants to understand that record. But they have these greedy little paws that...
That's what it is.
They have these greedy little paws.
Little raccoon paws.
And they don't want to acknowledge the fact that their companies, their data pools, and their data revenues would not exist without the participation, work, calorie usage, and mental power and fortitude of human beings participating in those systems.
And those systems, there's a philosopher, Luciano Floridi. He's Italian, so I probably missed, but he calls it the concept of informational organisms, or inforgs. And I think now this is really important. Humans increasingly exist as hybrid entities, he says. So they're part physical, part informational.
This is what.
And then if we look at it through that lens, the 23andMe bankruptcy isn't just a threat to data privacy, it's a potential violation of informational bodies.
That's exactly what it is. Me sitting here, I say nothing, but being here in the room, I'm emitting information. I am an organism that has some sort of interaction with my environment. Data is captured because of that, through my own free will.
Right.
The only thing we see here is 23 in them. There's no 23 in me. That's being taken from them. Okay, from the people themselves. When somebody restricts the ability for people to claim what is rightfully theirs, they're trying to step in and stop naturally occurring systems and things that require biological rights from using those rights appropriately. They're trying to arrest that for economic gain. You need to hand those things back to people. They don't understand that all of their headache was because they never actually designed the system for people's benefit. Now, they can right-side their ship by having people take their data and port it through Data Vault Connect into something that they rightfully own, establish an audit trail to say that, hey, we're 23andMe. We now want to do the right thing. We've spoken with the bankruptcy lawyers. We're going to adopt TARTLE Data Vault Connect. We're going to allow everybody to instantaneously port their data into that system. You can keep it securely. It has a blockchain record of ownership. And if you choose to monetize it, it's completely up to you. That's the only way we can right-side this thing from what we've done wrong for so many years. That's their only solution.
That's the only solution, yeah.
But you know what's going to be worse if the bankruptcy lawyers go out, because so many people are feasting. I'd say at government levels, and I would say pharmaceutical levels are feasting to come in and actually buy this data.
Well, and that's what I want to do 3 questions, rapid fire with you, and you're going to answer each question, because human agency in this AI age, who do you think's going to come in and buy this data? It's an AI company. That's what there's billions and billions of dollars in the private equity firms that are being thrown at these AI companies because they know what's going to happen.
No,
everybody knows.
This is what will happen. Sovereign nations will go to sovereign wealth funds. The sovereign wealth funds will put their money into venture capital funds that fund AI to buy this data. So what happens is it all gets rolled up into state ownership. And when you can do that, you can also design, biological weapons to target people with specific genetic codes.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
It's a massive advantage.
People don't even realize that.
No, they don't get it. It's very, very dangerous. If you thought COVID was bad, wait till you have some sort of foreign nation buying this data.
Wait till you have a nation that doesn't like a certain genetic type of people.
This is exactly right.
And they can have drone strikes that strike these certain people in these genetic families or whatever it may be. But let's get in these 2 questions because it's a little fun. If your genetic data helps train medical AI that saves lives, but you never explicitly consented to this use, has your agency been violated or extended?
It's absolutely been violated. Keyword right there is consent. I never consented to the use. I think it's phenomenal to go and solve and cure diseases, right? With genetic information. But just ask me, Let me have the choice. Let me have the agency in the relinquishment of my data to go do this. Because otherwise it just rolls up to 23andMe, and who fucking cares about them? Nobody. It's really about you. It's about your empowerment and your information and your ability to interact through your choice and free will to go and solve those things. So absolutely, it's been violated.
Second question. If bankruptcy courts treat your DNA data as a transferable asset, what other aspects of your information self might be commodified in the future?
All of it.
That's what I think.
So this is one of the other things. TARTLE has established the first publicly traded marketplace for consumer data, where consumers have the ability to do this. And we're hoping in the future that there's a tax code around it. Now, if the bankruptcy court goes in and says that this is a transferable asset, that's a balance sheet item which can be depreciated. Now there's a tax code associated with it. That completely changes the dynamic here. And that means there's only going to be an increase in the want for this data itself. And the level of purchase is going to increase too, because companies are going to want to depreciate that on their balance sheet. Who wouldn't do it? They already own so much of it. What a great way to save on taxes.
Yeah, from an ROI standpoint. Number 3, third question. This is a great one. In a world of increasingly sophisticated synthetic data, is there an ethical difference between using your actual genetic information and a statistically identical synthetic version?
You just said there's a massive difference. It's synthetic. If I gave you a piece of pizza that was made in Italy, square one, right? Really nice, juicy, clean, happy, good cow milk, like all that other stuff to make the cheese. Or I give you a synthetic one that came out of like a freezer box and somebody heated up. Which one are you going to go towards?
Yeah, of course, every time.
Because it's fucking synthetic. Synthetic will never achieve the level of what is organic, right? What is actually real. Synthesized, real. That's what it boils down to. So anytime you hear something that's like, consent violation synthesis, get rid of those things. You don't get away from the stuff that violates what is normal and real and right for you.
Right.
Did I have consent? Yes. Fantastic. Is it synthetic? No. Perfect. I'll take it. These should be easy mechanics in your brain to choose these are the choices I need to be making.
Well, I mean, whenever you start seeing it as a privacy violation, you have to look at it as a violation.
Well, you know what they'll say? Well, you gave us your thing. You signed the terms of service. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, Dr. Helen Nissa.
No way.
She's the director of the Digital Life Initiative at Cornell Tech. She said this, I think it's so interesting. She said, privacy is not simply about restricting flows of information, but ensuring that they flow appropriately.
They're not.
That's what TARTLE is.
Yeah, they're
We're
not
not about restricting.
No, we're about opening the flow.
Yes.
We're about giving people instantaneously what they rightfully deserve. Give them choice. Right now, you're seeing a court case on restricted choice that has massive, massive negative implications in the future. That's what we're viewing.
Yeah, and there's also a trust issue that I think is really important. Professor Woodrow Hartzog, he's the author of Privacy Blueprint. He said this. He said, companies consistently prioritize growth and data maximization over the long-term sustainability of user trust. So when companies treat data as an infinitely exploitable resource, which we as humans are great at doing that, rather than a contingent privilege, the eventual trust collapse is inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other biological system. Of course it's going to collapse. It's like with forestry, oil. Yes. Like you fucking name it, we always overdo it.
Let's park there, forestry. Professor Julia Cohen of Georgetown Law School points out this. She says this, data ecosystems, like natural ecosystems,
there you go,
require stewardship and balance. Companies that treat user data as extractable commodities rather than renewable resources face eventual collapse. I want people to understand this, and I want you to talk about this. There's more money if it's a renewable resource.
Of course,
if you're worried about your bottom line, you're worried about reporting to shareholders every quarter, there's more money.
Yeah, they're all selfish.
Why waste through it?
They're all being selfish and blind and driven by absolute nonsense. Nothing what they're doing is reasonable. Do there was a thing in forestry called the Faustman ratio invented by the Austrians. You ever heard of it? Now, let me give you a simple example. They had to figure out when was the best time for tree rotation to cut things down so that they didn't, draw too much from the nutrient soil and essentially kill the entire forest yield. When they figured that out, who were the first people to pick up on the ratio? Finance. They're like, this is a great way to use things for like resources and investing. Why the hell are we not applying it to data? Why are they not seeing that? They're completely ignoring it like it's just this free pool of candy that they're huffing down like, mountains of Coke in a bad film. Am I wrong?
No, it's like,
that scene in Scarface and he's got that mountain of Coke?
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to do with the data. But you know what happens? The brain gets so pegged open that the biological system fails. That's what you're doing right now. You're setting yourself up to fail. And so unless you find and use technologies like TARTLE and TARTLE Data Vault Connect to establish a stewardship and a perfect ecosystem balance between people, data, and business, if you don't put those things together and actually marry them, doomed to fail.
Yeah, it's doomed.
If you want AI to continue to grow, if you don't adopt this, fail. It's a guarantee. You can't synthesize data all the way under the sun. It will fail. It doesn't matter what new algorithms you create with, you're going to fail. You need perfect data, rich, contextual, nuanced, bespoke data from people 24/7 from now until kingdom come. There's only one technology in the world to do it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think what makes 23andMe case particularly concerning is not just the genetic information, and it's not like a browsing history or purchase record, but there's four things that I want us to talk about, especially when it comes to genetic data, that a lot of people don't even realize. Number one, it's immutable. You cannot change your genetic code if it's compromised. Number two, it's permanently identifying. DNA can identify you even in decades after collection.
Absolutely.
And this is the big one people don't think about. The revelatory of information about blood relatives. They haven't considered. They haven't shared it.
No, but
my 23andMe, I can log in and their data shows all my relatives.
So now you have this absolute scatter plot. And we all know that everybody is 7 degrees connected to one donor. That's it. So the second you get a statistically large body of people that you've stolen their genetic information from, keyword stolen, you have the ability to essentially map the entire human race. And what do you think you could do with that?
Well, even worse is the potentially predictive of health conditions not yet manifested.
Yeah, of course.
The insurance companies are getting into this already right now. They can predict within 3 years of when you die.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it. You know? But I mean, I'm telling you, it goes back to the film Gattaca. If you guys haven't seen it, watch it. It shows you one of two ways that these things actually go. It's a fantastic film, artfully done, beautiful.
I want to get into at the tail end of this, because I think it's really important. We could go on and on with this, but I want to get into TARTLE's vision and not just reimagining data sovereignty, but specifically how TARTLE, we've built this approach around this simple yet revolutionary principle: data sovereignty begins and ends with the individual. But our platform represents a practical implementation of this philosophy. When data is never divorced from continuous consent, this 23andMe case demonstrates why this approach isn't just ethically preferable, it's essential for sustainable models, like you said, in the AI age.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of compare TARTLE to traditional data architectures. Traditional data architectures create what we call consent debt.
Yeah, there's a lack of it.
It's a growing gap between initial user consent and then expanding data uses that eventually it's going to become unsustainable.
Right. There's no awareness, and it gets to a point where it's such a black hole that the thing collapses on itself.
So TARTLE's Data Vault Connect and Real Intelligence API implement a zero-debt consent architecture. And I want you to talk about these 4 key features that are around the TARTLE ecosystem.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Because I think it's important that we understand our technology here at TARTLE. Number one is persistent ownership. Data contributors maintain control regardless of platform changes.
TARTLE has no control over your data vault or your data. We can't see it. We can't move it. It's completely under your power. No matter what changes in the system, the one thing that doesn't change is your ability to always rightfully own and move and control, delete, or monetize that data as you see fit. No other technology does that for you.
And the beautiful part with TARTLE is whether it's 23andMe, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's YouTube, whether it's some new financial app that's out there, finance, whatever it may be, stock buying, Robinhood, whatever, all of those, it doesn't matter. It still goes back to you. And this is number 2, is the granular consent. Specific permission required for each data use.
Yeah, so
each platform.
Any single moment that there is a request of your data on TARTLE, you get to choose if you want to give it to that person or business at the price that you feel is appropriate with a specific use license attached to it. You are setting all of the parameters for the use of that asset when it is given to someone else. It's like safety mechanics on, I don't know, on cars, okay? No one is selling cars now that don't have like auto braking assist, okay? Those things are now built into it, into the use of the asset.
But like blind spot monitoring, auto assist,
you're on it.
ABS, going,
those
holding, not us just holding. If we hold our breakdown, we're not really doing
it. No, you're just sliding.
But when you think about that, each of those are symbiotic in helping each other create a safer environment.
So what happens is you have all of those peripheral safety mechanics that come together to create one core product. And so in TARTLE, the granular consent says all these safety mechanisms and all these pieces of choice are baked into every iota of data that you rightfully own as a consumer using TARTLE Data Vault Connect.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Number 3 is value return. Revenue from data use flows back to contributors.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are sharing the data, money comes to you for doing so. That's it. You're rightfully and fairly compensated for the sharing of that data. If companies choose to participate, TARTLE will share your revenues back with the company. This is great. It's a win-win. You know what I mean? And the beauty of it is that when companies choose to do something like this, or companies choose to source their data through TARTLE, they're reducing their liabilities. they're covering their ass when it comes to risk because now they have specific use license, a full audit trail on something they never had before that was a total black hole. You're actually creating a mechanic that works not only for you, the business, but also for your consumer that's participating with you.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And this fourth one, this sounds simple, but I want Alexander to talk about this one because it sounds so simple. You're going to skip past how amazing this is. Continuous choice, the ability, keyword here, to withdraw consent at any point in the data lifecycle. Why do we have the ability to withdraw any consent at any point? But companies, once that data lifecycle starts going, there's no ability.
No, there's no ability. Now, what makes the technology unique with Data Vault Connect is you can shut it off. So when you have had this pipeline of giving data to a company and you getting things in return, you can shut that off at any moment. You have full control. No one's ever built that for you. No one's ever built off a shutdown switch.
Yes.
The public should be demanding it, and companies should actually welcome it. Because the headache they go through to build all this other crap and try and keep up with it, or they get a data takedown request, what a hassle. If you just adopted TARTLE Data Vault Connect, you don't have an economic benefit, a risk benefit, and a consumer engagement benefit.
Yeah, and when it comes to, I want us to imagine if 23andMe has built on a model that is the TARTLE ecosystem in the beginning.
Impossible.
But if they had done that,
okay.
its bankruptcy would still represent a business failure.
Of course it's a big,
it's like if you're not selling enough kits or the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be a privacy crisis. User data would remain, with TARTLE, user data would remain under individual control, immune to bulk transfer.
Wouldn't have been an issue.
In bankruptcy proceedings, research partnerships could continue.
Absolutely.
With explicit consent, and they would be willing participants, us as humans, rather than this bulk data asset sale.
Right. And so we wouldn't have arrested the momentum of forward human evolution if they had just set this up properly. So now we're saying something, right your ship, adopt Data Vault Connect, give the people what they deserve, and fix this thing, and do not arrest the momentum of human evolution, which is far more important than your business fuck up.
Yeah, I want to talk to chief data officers, chief technology officers, and closing this out, and then we'll be done with the podcast. But chief data officers, chief technology officers, whether you work for an AI company, whether you're a technology founder, whatever it may be, we must design systems that treat data ethics not as compliance burdens, but as a core architectural principle. And there's 4 things that I want you to talk about. So if we're not looking at it as a burden, something that's why do you think a CEO hires a chief data officer? We make sure, what's the first thing he's going to say? We got to be compliant.
Have to be compliant.
Make
we
sure
hear it all the time.
GPDR, EU.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want another $50 million fine. Yeah, exactly.
So if we don't look at it as a compliance burden, but a core architecture principle, this means, number 1, talk about this one, building consent mechanisms that persist throughout the data lifecycle. We kind of did that, but if you're talking to maybe another CEO or CTO or chief data officer.
If you're a CEO, you look at your CTO and be like, look, Data Vault Connect, free technology. It's only going to cost you and your development team some time to put in a couple lines of JavaScript, send the data payload,
20 minutes.
make everybody happy.
If that, yeah.
Reduce your liabilities.
Yes.
If anything, I just saved you $50 million. And probably you had a financial gain by adopting Data Vault Connect.
Well, it's a technological safeguard that people aren't realizing, and it prevents privacy violations.
Of course it does.
OAuth 2 prevents privacy violations.
Everything that they're doing right now, these companies, is completely reactive. Well, we did all this, but we're still getting sued. Okay, well then take a proactive approach. Install this thing, and then you're not going to have any trouble. You're going to have a verifiable audit line of defense that you bring back to legal, and you tell everybody else to pound sand.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize this, especially when let's talk ROI, revenue, balance sheets, all that. When you partner with TARTLE, you create a business model where data value flows, not just to the individual and you're paying an individual for their data. And now we've got this ethical thing that goes on. You have an opportunity to revenue share on all platforms.
Correct.
So if I decide to say, hey, okay, we'll sell the 23andMe data. We've got the Locke too. You log in, I consent. Okay, we're good. No. It goes far beyond that. What happens to Jason Rigby? I want you to share this with chief data officers. What happens to Jason Rigby in the revenue share process if he's doing other things on TARTLE?
So say, for instance, I'm a Home Depot or a T-Mobile or a Walmart, and we've adopted Data Vault Connect or 23andMe. No one can stop Jason from going out and monetizing his data anywhere he wants. TARTLE rev shares that back with me as a business. So rather than a one-to-one stream, it's a one-to-many revenue stream that comes back to me because I did the right thing. You would be a foolish, moronic executive not to adopt something like this.
And this is really important too. Not only do you get a revenue share across all these different platforms through the TARTLE ecosystem, but you also can have the ability to get data enrichment.
You can make all of your data access and analysis that much stronger. You could probably build an in-house artificial intelligence model that would surpass Anthropic, Claude, fucking GPT, okay, llamas, Geminis. You want to know why? They currently right now don't have that discrete access to completely bespoke, rich, contextual, nuanced data sets directly from consumers. They don't have it. They wish they would get their hands on it.
And there's so many creative ways that people can use data. And there's so many ways that through the TARTLE platform that you can build technology through it, So let's close out in this. Data humans future. As we reflect on this 23andMe bankruptcy and its implications, one truth emerges. And I think it's with striking clarity. The future of technology depends on rehumanizing data.
You don't even need to say anymore. That's it. Unless we start to create technology that is designed for human evolution, not to extract from human beings, but actually help them evolve. That's our only choice. Otherwise, everything's doomed to fail. It's a shame because I'm not a doomsayer, but everybody seems to be teeing everything up right now for the wrong thing. And we have a technology right now, and it's a function of choice for all of you intelligent people out there, executives and consumers, to go and adopt. I'm not looking to get rich. I'm trying to actually preserve humanity. And I can't do that unless you all make the choice to do the right thing.
Yeah, and in the show notes below, we're going to have the product deck links.
Yep.
So if you want to know more about the TARTLE ecosystem, if you want to know about Real Intelligence API, if you're an AI company, or you want to know about Data Vault Connect and how you can implement that, we have the links right below.
Yeah, look it up. So thank you very much for coming to listen to TCAST. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Good luck to 23andMe. I hope you do the right thing.
Contact us, 23andMe.
Yeah, not that hard to find. I mean, look at this. Clearly, we're online. You know what I mean? So, come find us. Thanks.